Do you remember this one? Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he.
Let's talk about that.
Let's do that. Hi everyone, Tina Getz with St. John's Faith Formation. I'm back with Eli McMahon. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So today we're going to talk about hymn selection. I think there's a lot of people that want to know, inquiring minds want to know, why do you pick the music you pick? Some people are feeling like some of the songs they like to sing at Mass, they're not hearing them here. So I thought maybe it'd be a great time to sit down, have you talk about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I am going to go off of the USCCB, United States Catholic Confraternity of Bishops, which is the governing authority of the church in the United States. They made a document called Sing to the Lord, I think it was in 2007.
Okay.
And they gave a few guidelines for picking out music for pastoral musicians, people like that are in my role. And so they have three criteria. 1, liturgical considerations. 2, pastoral considerations. And 3, musical considerations.
Okay.
So I'm just going to unpack each of those one by one and see where we end up. So first is liturgical considerations. So that is 1, does the text fit with the text of the Mass?
Okay.
That doesn't mean that every hymn text that we do has to be exactly something from the Mass, but rather that it contains the same kind of vocabulary and content that you would find in the Mass. So when Father prays one of the prayers that are assigned to him, like the collect, there's kind of an exalted, higher up language, vocabulary that we use, even in the vernacular, even in English, to set it apart.
Okay.
To say there's something like we don't speak normally in everyday conversation. Like right now, we're not speaking in that high vocabulary. We don't use that in ordinary times because this is set apart for the Mass. In the same way, hymns should have that exalted language, not necessarily vocabulary that we use all the time, but rather something that is set apart for sacred use.
Okay.
2, in that liturgical consideration, does the music itself lend itself to a liturgical mindset?
Okay.
So we've talked about how like Gregorian chant is that standard of music that is set for us by the church. Does this hymnody fit with Gregorian chant? If you play them side by side, it's a good test. If you play them side by side, does the hymn sound kind of silly? Or does it make the Gregorian chant sound like, oh, it's just sad now? If either of those two things happen, that's working against our liturgical consideration.
Okay.
So my goal in picking out music is that it has that high exalted language, and that its musical language, the melody and things like that, pair well with chant.
Okay.
Since that is the mode of music that is first assigned to the Mass.
Interesting.
Second is the pastoral consideration.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, okay, so pastoral needs means that you're making a concession for the people because they can't handle maybe some higher liturgy, or they can't handle this.
Okay.
Or I really like this hymn or something like that, and it makes me feel good in order to hear this hymn and to sing this hymn.
Okay.
And that's a misinterpretation of what pastoral considerations are.
Okay.
What does a pastor do? A pastor is a shepherd of his flock,
right?
And so he leads them somewhere.
Right.
That's what the pastoral consideration is. Okay. So what direction is this music pushing us towards?
Okay.
Is it pushing us towards looking towards God?
Right.
Or is it pushing us toward looking at ourselves or looking at each other? Is this pushing us towards focusing on the sacrifice of Christ at the Mass? Or is it focusing on, hey, look, it's all of us gathering here together?
Right.
And so that is the pastoral consideration. Where is this leading us to? And especially, how is this shaping our prayer? It's not a matter of, this makes me feel good. Although it is good to have things that are familiar to you. There is a beauty to that, but that's not the only consideration.
Right. You know, that's interesting. So when Father Neil first started working here, he made comments about certain musical hymns that were played at Mass. And I was very perplexed. I was like, well, what's wrong with that song? And I'd later go back and read the text of the song, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's all about us instead of being what it should be, all about God. So that's what you're kind of, what the point you're kind of making is.
And that text, so not only does it need to be that high and exalted vocabulary that we were talking about, it also just needs to be orthodox. Like it needs to be Catholic. So there are quite a few hymns that are at best ambiguous. I'm not going to name names of hymns here, but there are several that, if you take them at face value, they are heretical. I'm avoiding those, or trying to avoid those.
Can we look at the year that they were written that would to help determine that or not?
No.
Okay,
yeah,
really?
We really can't, because if you think of at the beginning of Christianity, like 100 AD, they were heretics. And there were very vocal heretics who wrote hymns in order to spread their heresy.
Oh my gosh.
This is not a new phenomenon.
I didn't know that.
Now, the USCCB is doing a better job, lately with cracking down on some of those heresies. And you'll find in other hymnals that the vocabulary in these hymns is being changed a little bit in order to line up better with the Catholic position.
Wow.
And so some of the things that we've gotten used to singing in the past, they've actually changed just slightly so that, now it's closer in line with Catholic doctrine.
Wow.
My goal, let's be unambiguous. Let's be like unashamedly Catholic. In our orthodoxy, in our positions of faith. And then the last consideration. So we've already done liturgical and pastoral. The last consideration is musical. And this one is the one that many people will say, well, I like this music. That's not the only consideration that's being done. Is like, there are hymns that we do that I'm not a particular fan of, but they are well-written music. And they're well-written for the purpose of singing a hymn at church. That means that they're singable, that often the notes are within a certain range that is conducive to singing well in the congregation. They might be a little bit simpler melodically, or they might just be more well-crafted that your ear catches on to it really pretty fast. Many hymns that we've gotten used to doing, I think of like the 80s hymns often, are very syncopated and actually difficult to sing well. It's easy for people to hum along or to sing along, but to sing it well is another matter.
Interesting.
And so that's one consideration that I have musically. I'm looking at how well it's crafted, how well it pairs with the organ, and we'll talk about the use of organ in another video.
The next one, okay.
But so those are just a few of the considerations that I'm thinking of. I'm also thinking about the texts that are actually given to me during Mass. Too. So
what do you mean?
So I'm given those propers, the entrance, antiphon, the offertory, and the communion, and I'm trying to match hymns to those often. Doesn't always work. There's not always one that fits, but most of the time I've found there is something that fits or complements it really well. Really well.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Great. That is wonderful. So, okay.
All right.
Yay! All right. So it sounds like we're going to talk about the organ in the next video, and that's all we have for today. So God bless you, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Like my crazy hair today.
I didn't think it was. No, it was crazy. Is it crazy?
Oh, the camera's rolling.
Oh my God! Oh, fun! Now we have a blooper. Eli, you're probably pretty young for this one. Have you ever heard of this one? Hey, Eli. This one.
Oh, it's bad.
Eli, have you ever heard of this one? I am the Lord of the dance, said he. So, how does it go? I've been practicing all morning.
You've been practicing that one all morning. Oh no. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. Just like rocking out.
You got a bad intro?
That's fine.
I think a lot of people are over that song right now. I don't even know if anybody plays it anymore.
I
Okay.
hope not.
It's all right.
It's just like has nothing to. Okay.
I know. Because the song, we did this just in time. We should remember that for next time. It's to be.
Or not at this time. Yeesh.
You have to wait because, yeah, before the song gets over.
It's